Some people say history repeats itself, and that you can see the reflections of the past every day. Sounds nice, doesn't it? Makes it all seem to matter so much. But most things you learn in your history class seem to have absolutely no effect on what you will do today, or tomorrow, or ever. They aren't wrong, the people who say the past is all around us and that it permeates through society. That's why they make you take history every single year. Your history class is more than the facts you memorize or even the cool, crazy stories your teachers tell you. Because those things will never repeat, and you will never see them in your life. Above all else, your history class teaches you how to think bigger. Because the bigger you think, the more globally, the more you think about the themes of the facts and stories, the more you'll see history as a strange cycle, and you'll understand the directions of the future. The bigger you think, the more the past seems to affect today, and tomorrow, and forever. Let's start small and get bigger, bit by bit. I want to go back to the time before the nations we know today existed, because that can be the hardest to relate to modern life. At the birth of civilization and for centuries after, the environment played a huge role on the locations where civilization arose. Many began in river valleys, where there was enough water to grow crops. The only thing is, not all river valleys are created equal. The different environments had a huge impact on how each civilization developed. Egypt, for example, lived along the Nile River, which flowed regularly and flooded predictably. This made irrigation simpler. The soil was very fertile and crops grew easily. For Egyptians, food was abundant and the environment provided for their basic needs, including safety. As the civilization was protected by mountains, seas, and deserts. Attacks were infrequent, leading to not only the longevity of the civilization, but also their beliefs. Egyptian theology was polytheistic, and the population believed in gods who were stable in nature. The deities were as reliable as the environment they were believed to control. Like many polytheistic religions, the gods were tied to natural phenomena such as the rising of the sun or thunderstorms. The Egyptians also believed in a rich afterlife that would be a continuation of the prosperity of life in their society. The complex beliefs of the afterlife led early Egyptians to preserve pharaohs' bodies and place them with the things the person had enjoyed in life. The environment had a major impact on not only the theology of the civilization, but the government structure as well. The order and care taken with the transition between life and the afterlife reflected the order with which the civilization was run. The parallels between religion and the centralized government structure had a lot to do with how tied religion was to government. The order and predictability of the environment was seen as the god's work, and the pharaoh, who was seen to be divine, was expected to act as the gods did, with predictability and order. While Egypt was protected from invaders, later pharaohs were interested in expanding Egyptian society, so weapons were created. In contrast, the Indus River Valley civilization, which resided in modern-day India, was highly protected as well, and rarely, if ever, saw attack. The civilization saw no reason to create weaponry. This may have been the eventual downfall of the civilization, though the circumstances of the fall are still unclear. We see again how the environment affected how ancient river valley civilizations lived. Mesopotamian civilization was based on their environment as well. Though their environment was far from the predictability and protection of Egypt and the Indus River Valley. The Tigris and Euphrates rivers were anything but predictable and were prone to often violent flooding. The deities of Mesopotamian religion were viewed as fickle and as unpredictable as those rivers. Large irrigation projects were required to control the rivers and to maintain the civilization's food surplus. These projects became some of the first major engineering feats in history. One of the main characteristics of Mesopotamian society that distinguishes it from the others is that with each change in power, the structure of society and government also changed, almost completely. This stemmed from the relatively unprotected nature of Mesopotamia. Attacks were common, and when they occurred, new governments were set up. It's no surprise that our concept of empires began in Mesopotamia, because invaders who settle in a conquered civilization tend to refuse to remain in those specific cities. Now let's think bigger. We know the environment had a huge role in ancient river valley civilizations, but you may ask, what else they had to influence their societies? This is a perfectly good enough question. But my question is, what parts of future societies were based on the environment? I can think of a couple examples. Perhaps the beliefs of those fighting in the U.S. Civil War. After all, the South's economy was based on large plantations because they had the climate to grow mass production crops. Perhaps the progression of Russian culture and politics. Russia does, after all, span the gap between Europe and Asia, making it never really a part of either. And a cold winter may make them nearly unconquerable. So change usually comes from within. I think perhaps we stumbled upon a historical theme. We thought bigger, and now we can see history in our own lives, not as any one person or thing, but as a theme. Once we see it, there is one final question. How is our environment affecting us?